Zelda Owens had never been the type to panic, but standing outside the emergency room entrance with her mother doubled over in pain and her phone dead as a brick, she was close to losing it. Her mother clutched her side, face pale and sweating, and Zelda knew they needed help immediately. She had driven them here in a rush after her mom collapsed at home, and in her frantic state, she had forgotten to grab her charger. Now she needed to call her father, who was out of town on business, to let him know what was happening. She spotted a man leaning against a sleek black car in the parking area, scrolling through his phone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark jeans and a simple gray Henley that somehow looked expensive. His hair was dark and slightly tousled, and even from a distance, there was something commanding about his presence. Zelda rushed toward him, her heart hammering. "Excuse me, can I borrow your phone? Please, it's an emergency." He looked up immediately, his dark eyes assessing the situation in an instant. They flickered to her mother, who was now being helped by a nurse who had just noticed them, then back to Zelda's desperate expression. Instead of handing her his phone, he pulled out a business card from his wallet and pressed it into her palm. "Keep this. Call me when things settle down. I will make sure you have whatever you need." "What? No, I just need to make one call right now," Zelda said, confused and frustrated. He was already pulling out a second phone from his car, a sleek silver one that looked brand new. "Use this. Keep it as long as you need. I have others." Before she could protest, he added, "Your mother needs you. Go." Zelda stared at him for a split second, this stranger who was handing her an entire phone like it was nothing. Then she looked at the business card. Harrison Yale, CEO, Yale Industries. Her breath caught. Yale Industries was one of the largest pharmaceutical and medical supply companies in the country. This man was not just wealthy, he was a billionaire. But her mother groaned, and Zelda shoved the card in her pocket and clutched the phone. "Thank you," she breathed, then ran toward the entrance where the nurses were already getting a wheelchair. The next few hours were a blur of doctors, tests, and waiting rooms. Her mother had acute appendicitis and needed surgery immediately. Zelda called her father on the borrowed phone, her voice shaking as she explained everything. He promised to catch the next flight home, but it would be hours before he arrived. She sat in the surgical waiting area, the expensive phone resting in her lap, and finally pulled out the business card. Harrison Yale. The name was embossed in elegant silver lettering. On the back, written in pen, was a phone number and a single word: anytime. Why had he given her his personal number? Why had he handed over an entire phone to a complete stranger? Zelda turned the card over and over in her fingers, unable to make sense of it. When her mother came out of surgery stable and resting, Zelda finally allowed herself to breathe. Her father arrived shortly after, embracing her tightly and heading straight to her mother's bedside. Zelda stepped outside the hospital for the first time in 6 hours, the cool evening air washing over her. She looked at the phone in her hand and made a decision. She dialed the number on the card. He answered on the second ring. "Zelda," she blinked. "How did you know?" "I hoped it was you." "How is your mother?" His voice was deep and warm, and something about it made her shoulders relax. "She's okay. Appendicitis. They operated and she's stable now. My dad is here." "I am glad to hear it." There was genuine relief in his tone. "I wanted to return your phone," Zelda said quickly. "I can bring it wherever you are. I know it must have been expensive. Keep it for now. You might still need it." "Mr. Yale, I cannot just keep your phone." "Harrison," he corrected gently. "And yes, you can. Consider it a loaner until your situation is less chaotic." Zelda found herself almost smiling despite her exhaustion. You make a habit of giving strangers expensive electronics. Only the ones who look like their world is falling apart in a hospital parking lot. The honesty in his answer caught her off guard. She leaned against the brick wall of the hospital, suddenly feeling the weight of the entire day. "Thank you, really. I do not know what I would have done without your help. You would have found another way. You strike me as resourceful. You got all that from a 30-second interaction." "I am good at reading people. It is part of the job." Zelda looked up at the darkening sky. The billionaire job, he laughed, a low sound that made something flutter in her chest, something like that. They talked for another 20 minutes. Harrison asked about her mother, about her family, and somehow Zelda found herself telling this stranger about her life. She was 26, working as a pastry chef at a small but beloved bakery downtown. She had moved back home 6 months ago to be closer to her parents after her mother's health had started to worry her. She loved baking, loved creating something beautiful and delicious that made people happy. Harrison listened like every word mattered, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested. When she finally asked about him, he told her he was 32, that he had built Yale Industries from the ground up after inheriting a failing medical supply company from his grandfather. He worked too much, slept too little, and could not remember the last time he had a conversation that was not about quarterly reports or board meetings. Until now, he added, and Zelda felt that flutter again. When she finally said she needed to get back inside, Harrison made her promise to call if she needed anything. Zelda agreed, though she was not sure why she felt so reluctant to hang up. Over the next 3 days, while her mother recovered in the hospital, Zelda found herself texting Harrison. It started with updates about her mother's condition, which he always responded to with thoughtful messages and questions. Then it evolved into conversations about everything else. He asked about her work, and she told him about the new recipe she was developing for lavender honey croissants. She asked about his day, and he told her about a difficult negotiation with a hospital network that finally went through. The texts turned into phone calls. Long ones, late at night when Zelda finally got home from the hospital and was too wired to sleep. Harrison had a way of making her laugh even when she was exhausted, and his voice became something she looked forward to hearing. On the 4th day, when her mother was discharged and settled back home, Zelda knew she needed to return the phone. She texted Harrison and asked where they could meet. His response was immediate: "Dinner, tomorrow night, I will pick you up at 7. Zelda stared at her phone screen, her heart racing. This was not just returning a borrowed item anymore. This was a date. She texted back, "You do not even know where I live. You are right, send me your address." Zelda bit her lip, then typed out her address before she could overthink it. The next evening, she changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple navy dress that made her feel confident without trying too hard. Her mother, who was resting on the couch and regaining her color, watched with an amused smile. "This man must be special," her mother said. "I barely know him, Mom. You have been on the phone with him every night. I hear you laughing." Zelda felt her cheeks warm. "He is just nice." "And a billionaire, you said?" "That is not why I like him." Her mother's smile widened. "So you do like him?" Before Zelda could respond, the doorbell rang. She grabbed her purse, kissed her mother's cheek, and went to answer it. Harrison stood on her doorstep in dark slacks and a crisp white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. He was even more striking than she remembered, all sharp jawline and intense dark eyes that softened when they landed on her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you," Zelda managed, suddenly nervous. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He grinned, and it transformed his entire face from serious businessman to something warmer, more approachable. "Ready." She nodded, and he led her to his car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. But when he opened the door for her, the gesture felt genuine, not showy. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. It was not flashy or pretentious, just intimate and welcoming, with soft lighting and the smell of fresh bread and garlic in the air. "I thought you would take me somewhere fancy," Zelda admitted after they were seated. "Would you have preferred that?" "No, this is perfect." Harrison looked pleased. "I figured you would appreciate good food over expensive scenery. Besides, this place has the best carbonara in the city, and I thought a pastry chef would have strong opinions about proper Italian cuisine." She laughed. "You thought correctly." Dinner was easy in a way Zelda had not expected. They talked about everything: childhood memories, favorite books, embarrassing moments, dreams they had put on hold. Harrison told her about the pressure of running a company that employed thousands of people, the weight of decisions that affected lives. Zelda told him about the joy of watching someone's face light up when they tasted something she had made, the satisfaction of perfecting a recipe after dozens of attempts. "Why pastry?" Harrison asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. Zelda thought about it. "Because it is both art and science. You have to be precise, follow the rules, but you also get to be creative. And at the end, you have made something that brings people joy. That matters to me." "It does matter," Harrison agreed. "More than most things." When he drove her home that night, he walked her to the door but did not try to kiss her. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Yes," Zelda said without hesitation. "Tomorrow," she smiled. "Do not you have a company to run?" "I do." "But I would rather see you." They fell into a pattern over the next few weeks. Harrison would finish work and pick Zelda up after her shift at the bakery. Sometimes they went to dinner, other times they just walked through the city, talking and laughing. He showed her his favorite bookstore, a cramped little shop where the owner knew him by name. She brought him to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, where she picked out ingredients and explained the difference between good vanilla and great vanilla. Harrison was different than Zelda expected. Yes, he was confident and commanding, the kind of man who walked into a room and immediately drew attention. But he was also thoughtful and surprisingly funny, with a dry wit that caught her off guard. He listened more than he talked, remembered details she mentioned in passing, and never made her feel like his money or status created a gap between them. 3 weeks into whatever they were doing, Harrison invited her to his place for dinner. He lived in a penthouse downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. The space was sleek and modern but warm, filled with books and art that showed someone actually lived there. "You cook?" Zelda asked, watching him move confidently around the kitchen. "I do. Though I am warning you now, it will not be up to your standards." "I seriously doubt that." He made her pasta with a homemade sauce that was actually delicious, and they ate on his balcony under the stars. The city lights sparkled below them, but Zelda found herself more interested in watching Harrison, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. "Can I ask you something?" Zelda said after they had finished eating. "Anything." "Why did you give me your number that day? You could have just let me use your phone for one call." Harrison was quiet for a moment, swirling the wine in his glass. "Honestly, I do not know. I saw you and something in me just knew I needed to see you again. It was not logical or planned. I just acted on instinct." "That does not seem like you." "It is not. I have built my entire life on careful planning and calculated risks, but with you I did not want to calculate, I just wanted a chance." Zelda's heart was pounding. "I am glad you took it." He reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Zelda, I need you to know something. I am not good at this, dating, relationships, any of it. I have spent the last decade focused on building my company and I have not made room for much else. But being with you makes me want to try, makes me want to figure it out." "I want that too," Zelda said softly. Harrison stood and pulled her up with him, his hands settling on her waist. "Yeah, yes." He kissed her then, finally, and it was everything Zelda had been imagining for weeks. His lips were warm and sure, and when she pressed closer, his arms tightened around her like he never wanted to let go. They took things slow after that, building something real between them. Harrison integrated into Zelda's life, meeting her parents properly and charming her mother with his genuine interest in her recovery. He showed up at the bakery on her early mornings with coffee, perfectly made with oat milk and honey the way she liked it. He texted her terrible jokes during boring meetings and called her every night before bed, even when he was traveling for work. Zelda met Harrison's world too. He brought her to a charity gala where she wore a borrowed dress and tried not to feel overwhelmed by the wealth and power in the room. But Harrison never left her side, his hand steady at the small of her back, introducing her to everyone as if she belonged there. "You handled that well," he said in the car afterward. I smiled and nodded a lot. "You were perfect. Half those people are exhausting and you made actual conversation with them." Zelda leaned her head on his shoulder. "Your world is different from mine." "Does that bother you?" She thought about it. "No, but sometimes I worry that I do not fit." Harrison pulled the car over suddenly, turning to face her. "Zelda, listen to me. You fit with me. That is all that matters. I do not care about the rest of it. You say that now. I will say it always." He cupped her face gently. "I am falling in love with you. The woman who creates magic with flour and butter, who makes me laugh, who cares about people more than appearances. Not some version of you that fits into my world better, just you." Tears pricked Zelda's eyes. "I am falling in love with you too." He kissed her softly, then again with more intensity, and Zelda felt like everything in her life had been leading to this moment. 2 months later, they took a weekend trip to a cabin in the mountains. It was Harrison's idea, a chance to escape the city and just be together without the demands of work and life intruding. They hiked during the day, cooked meals together, and spent the evenings curled up by the fire. On their last night there, Harrison seemed nervous. He kept fidgeting, running his hand through his hair, which was so unlike him that Zelda finally called him out. "What is going on with you?" she asked, setting down her book. "Nothing. Why? You have been weird all day." Harrison exhaled slowly. "Okay, yes, I am nervous." "About what?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and Zelda's breath caught. "Wait, Harrison. Let me say this first," he interrupted gently. "I know it has only been a few months. I know everyone will say it is too fast. But Zelda, I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You make me happier than I knew I could be. You make me want to be better, to build a life that is about more than just work. I do not want to waste time when I know what I want." He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, elegant and simple with a single diamond that caught the firelight. "Zelda Owens, will you marry me?" Zelda was crying now, nodding before she could even speak. "Yes. Oh my God, yes." Harrison pulled her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed and cried at the same time. When he set her down, he slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then kissed her like his life depended on it. "I love you so much," he murmured against her lips. "I love you too. This is crazy. The best kind of crazy." They told her parents first, and while her father had reservations about the speed of it all, one conversation with Harrison seemed to settle his concerns. Harrison spoke about his intentions, his love for Zelda, his commitment to building a life with her with such sincerity that even her father had to admit the man was serious. The wedding was planned for 6 months later, a compromise between Harrison's desire to get married immediately and Zelda's mother's insistence that they needed time to plan properly. They kept it relatively small, just close friends and family, at a beautiful venue overlooking the ocean. Zelda wore a simple lace gown that made her feel like herself, and when she walked down the aisle and saw Harrison waiting for her, his eyes bright with emotion, she knew she was making the right choice. His vows made her cry. He promised to always be her safe place, to support her dreams, to make her coffee on early mornings and hold her on hard days. He promised to love her fiercely and gently, completely and unconditionally, for the rest of his life. Zelda promised to be his partner in everything, to challenge him and comfort him, to fill their home with laughter and love. She promised to choose him every day in big ways and small ones, for as long as they both lived. When the officiant pronounced them married, Harrison kissed her like they were the only two people in the world, and the cheers and applause faded into background noise. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, where they ate their way through every region, and Harrison insisted on visiting every bakery they passed so Zelda could take notes. They wandered through cobblestone streets, kissed in ancient ruins, and talked about their future. "I want kids," Harrison said one night over dinner in a tiny restaurant in Tuscany. "How many?" "However many you want," Zelda grinned. That is a dangerous thing to say, I mean it. I want a full house, chaos and noise and life. I want that too, Zelda admitted. Maybe 3. 3 sounds perfect. When they returned home, they moved into a new house together, one they had chosen jointly. It was not the penthouse, which Harrison sold without hesitation. Instead, it was a beautiful brownstone with a yard and enough space for the family they were planning. Harrison had a home office built for the days he worked from home, and Zelda had a dream kitchen where she could experiment with recipes. She continued working at the bakery for a while, but eventually, with Harrison's encouragement and investment, she opened her own place. A small patisserie that focused on quality over quantity, where every pastry was made with care and creativity. It was everything she had dreamed of, and Harrison was there for the opening, beaming with pride as customers lined up down the block. A year into their marriage, Zelda found out she was pregnant. She told Harrison over breakfast, sliding the positive test across the table while her heart hammered in her chest. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at her with tears in his eyes. Really, really. He was out of his chair in an instant, pulling her into his arms and holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "We are having a baby," he kept saying, like he could not quite believe it. Their daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in October, with Harrison holding Zelda's hand through every contraction and crying when the doctor placed their baby girl in Zelda's arms. They named her Hope, because that was what Harrison said Zelda had given him the day she asked to borrow his phone. 15 months later, their son arrived, a calm and easy baby they named James after Zelda's grandfather. And 2 years after that, their third child, another daughter named Claire, completed their family. Life was beautifully chaotic. Harrison scaled back his hours at work, hiring a capable team so he could be present for school pickups and bedtime stories. Zelda managed the patisserie with the help of a trusted staff, often bringing the kids to work where they would sit in the kitchen and help by eating the broken cookies and licking the spoons. On their 5th wedding anniversary, after they had put the kids to bed and collapsed on the couch together, Harrison pulled Zelda close. "Do you remember that day at the hospital?" he asked. "Of course. How could I forget? I almost did not go there that day. I had a meeting that ran late, and I was just stopping by to check on a new equipment installation. 5 minutes earlier or later, and we might never have met." Zelda tilted her head up to look at him. "But we did, and it was the best moment of my entire life. Better than when Hope was born, different, but just as important." He kissed her forehead. "You asked to borrow my phone and I gave you everything instead. Best trade I ever made," Zelda laughed, snuggling closer. "I still have your business card, you know, the one you gave me that day." "You do? It is in my jewelry box. I kept it because it felt important, like maybe even then I knew you were going to change my life." Harrison held her tighter. "You changed mine first." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the quiet house around them, their children sleeping upstairs, their life together spread out in every room. It had started with a simple request, a moment of desperation and unexpected kindness. But it had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. Years continued to pass in a blur of happiness. The kids grew, the patisserie thrived, and Harrison's company continued to expand, but he never lost sight of what mattered most. Every major decision was made together, every success celebrated as a family, every hardship faced side by side. On their 10th anniversary, Harrison took Zelda back to that Italian restaurant where they had eaten on their first date. It looked exactly the same, cozy and intimate, and they ordered the same dishes they had shared a decade earlier. 10 years, Zelda marveled. "It feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time." "Best 10 years of my life," Harrison said, raising his glass. "To 10 more. And then 10 after that. You are planning on keeping me around that long? I am planning on keeping you around forever." Zelda clinked her glass against his. "I can live with that." When Hope turned 10, she asked her parents how they met. They were all together at Sunday dinner, a tradition they had maintained through everything, and the question came out of nowhere. Harrison and Zelda exchanged a glance, smiling. "Your mom asked me for help," Harrison said simply, "and I made sure she knew she could count on me." "That is not the whole story," Hope protested. "No, but it is the important part," Zelda added, reaching for Harrison's hand across the table. "Sometimes the best things in life start with a simple moment of reaching out to someone, even a stranger. You never know what might happen." "Did you know Dad was rich when you met him?" James asked, earning a laugh from everyone. "Not at first," Zelda admitted, "but it would not have mattered either way." "Why not?" Claire asked. "Because your father's money is not why I fell in love with him. I fell in love with him because he was kind when I needed help, because he made me laugh, because he listened to me and valued what I had to say, because he showed up every single day and chose me." Harrison squeezed her hand. "And I will keep choosing you every single day for the rest of my life." The kids groaned at the sappiness, but they were smiling too, and Zelda knew they understood. They were growing up in a home filled with love, learning what it meant to build something real with someone, to choose partnership and respect and genuine affection over anything else. 20 years after that day in the hospital parking lot, Zelda and Harrison stood in the kitchen of their home, preparing breakfast while their adult children and their families visited for the holidays. Grandchildren ran through the house, filling it with laughter and noise, and Zelda felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the life they had built. Harrison came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy," he murmured. "Incredibly," Zelda replied, leaning back into him. "You, more than I ever thought possible." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had given her so much more than his phone number all those years ago. The gray threading through his dark hair only made him more distinguished, and the lines around his eyes came from years of smiling and laughing together. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too. Always have, always will." They kissed, slow and sweet, the kind of kiss that came from decades of love and trust and choosing each other every single day. Their story had started with a desperate request and an unexpected answer. But it had become so much more than either of them could have imagined. A lifetime of partnership, of building dreams together, of facing challenges and celebrating victories side by side. A family that filled their home with love and laughter. A love that had only grown deeper and stronger with time. It was the kind of love that started with kindness and grew into forever. And neither of them would have changed a single moment.